So 3 more sections. We're going to talk about servicing our clients. So these are administrative systems we're using to service our clients. We're going to talk about actually working past clients, sphere, things like that, and then growing the team. Growing the team, culture and opportunity and expansion and things like that. Before we start though, I know we went through a couple of ahas. Let's go through a couple more. Here we go.
Okay, so setting appointments, listing appointments, creating nurtures.
Ooh, that's interesting. He said setting listing appointments is more like a job. Creating nurtures is like creating a business. At the end of the day, I think what I hear when you say that is setting nurture or creating nurtures is creating the long term, right? Building the long term. Whereas setting appointments is just focused on right now. And right now is going to help me in my job. 6, 9, 12 months from now is going to help me to grow a business. Thank you for that. One more aha? One more aha from earlier today. Anything from the first half? Yep.
Questions give you the ammo to close.
Questions give you the ammo you need to close. That's good. Thank you for that. All right, so here we go. With servicing clients. We're talking about communication standards, buyer and seller communication systems, focus on day one follow-up, and finishing strong. All right. So here are some standards and some guidelines that we have around communication with clients. The first one is response rate. So first of all, the way I look at this is how much our phone rings in the office is going to determine how well we're keeping our clients ahead of the game, right? If our phone never rang, if clients never called us, that means we would have always been telling them, here's what's going to happen next. Here's what's going on, here's what's going to happen next. We would be over-communicating, right? When our phone rings and it's a client and they have a question, it means we failed somewhere previously to actually communicate with them and help them understand fully what's going on, right? So response rate, how quickly to respond, even if we don't know the answer yet. So another thing we do here, another thing that what I realized is I had administrative people in the organization that they would get a question, like say an email from a client. And the question would be about maybe the inspection report or scheduling or something like that. And so the staff member would actually immediately reach out to the party that they needed to help them answer the question. Maybe it's the title company, or maybe it was the appraiser, or whoever it was. And that individual would not get back to my staff member, right, in an appropriate amount of time. And so all of a sudden the client has to reach out again, and now they're frustrated because they feel ignored, because rather than responding, the staff member actually immediately took action, but didn't respond and let them know they were taking action. So one of the things we talk about with our staff is, no matter what, we have to rely on a lot of people in this industry, a lot of different people, and not everybody shares the same standards. So when we get questions from our clients, it's super important that when we're reading it, when we're acting on it, we got to tell them, we got to over communicate. So we've got to tell them that we're working on it, that we hear their request, whatever it is, and that we're working on it right now, rather than just going and taking action and waiting to get the answer. Right? Perception is reality. So if we don't respond, their perception is that we're blowing them off. And for them, that's their reality. So that's one of the things we focus on there. Handoffs. How often is a client handed off, and does it feel like a handoff? So I was talking about this earlier with somebody. How many times, so you have the ISA, and then you have the agent go out and meet them in person, and the agent passes them off to a listing manager, and then the listing manager to the transaction manager, and then they're doing a buyer deal and working with a different, they could be working with 7, 8 people in the organization by the time it's all said and done. If you have a runner and a sales manager and things like that, there's a lot of different people dipping their hand in the pot. So one of the things you want to think about as you're building your team is, how can you have the fewest amount of handoffs and the least amount of people involved in communicating with the client? And sometimes that won't always be the most efficient thing for your organization. Okay, so what I mean by that is, the most efficient thing for your organization would be what we used to do. It would be having a listing manager and a transaction manager. That way the listing manager could just focus exclusively on active clients, servicing and marketing active listings. The transaction manager could focus on that 30 to 60 day contract to close process, right? For us, internally, that's the most effective way that we could do it. However, the challenge there is they go from the listing agent to the listing manager, to the transaction manager. There's 3 different people in that one transaction right there once they hire us that they're talking to. So then we switched it and we said, we're gonna have account managers. And so account managers, what we said is we're just gonna have one person that deals with all of John's deals, whether they're buyers or sellers or whatever it is. And we'll have one person that deals with all of Seth's deals. You know, it might be the same person, but every transaction manager is getting assigned certain agents that they'll work with, and then they'll do all of it. So it was really good for the client. It was really good for the client because the client now only talked to the agent and the admin, only 2 people. And that worked really well for the client, but for us, our transaction managers started to get really frustrated because they were constantly switching between a buyer pending and a coming soon and an active listing and a pending listing, and they had to constantly change their mindset, and they weren't able to be as effective as they needed to be. And so the happy medium for us, what we found is there's no perfect solution. As you build and grow your team, there may not ever be a perfect solution. What we found the happy medium being for us is to have one person who focuses on buyer contract to close, and then everybody else focuses on listing, all listings, so coming soon, active, and pending. That way, they're in the same frame of mind, and there's still the least amount of handoffs that we can get. So that was the solution we came up with. But the point here is, regardless of how you end up managing your transactions and your listings and all that, remember that what's most efficient and effective, what's most efficient in your organization might not be the most effective thing because it's not the best for the client. And so you've got to constantly weigh, how does this feel to the homeowner, how does this feel to the home buyer, and how can we be most efficient and effective as possible? So always look from both sides of that. Clarity, do clients feel like they know where the process is at all times? So we encourage our people, this isn't like a standard with consequences, but we encourage our people and train our people to say, at the end of every conversation, this is what's going to happen next, during the entire contract to close. Every conversation that happens, the call ends with, and this is what's going to happen next. That way they know where they're at in the transaction at any given time. And client feedback, how happy are clients with the process? We're actually going to go through what we do with this call. Glenn Neely, my MAPS coach, actually encouraged me to make this call, to be consistent with it, and it changed our business. So we're going to talk about our client feedback calls. All right, so setting communication standards. So one of the standards in our organization, and probably in a lot of y'all's organizations as well, is that there's got to be a proactive weekly phone call. So regardless of if they called us, and regardless of showings and different things that happen throughout the week, there's always got to be one weekly proactive call. And so we've got the script in here in the book. I don't think it's in the PowerPoint. Nope. But it's in the book. What page is this script on? On page 52, we've got our account manager scripts. So our account management scripts, do you guys want to walk through some of this stuff, or do you want to skip past it? Skip past it? Oh, go through it. Okay. All right, well then let me grab this book because it's not on the PowerPoint. So these are our calls for, it's basically weekly proactive calls, whether it's a coming soon, an active, or pending. We have different, and then once it closes, we have different scripts for each of them. So coming soon calls. This is taken right out of our manual for how we're training our admin, our transaction managers. So coming soon calls. Number 1, introduce yourself. So let the client know that you work with the agent and will be the main point of contact when listing the property for sale. What we tell the admin is, if the client keeps calling the agent, you haven't effectively portrayed yourself as the project manager, as the key person here. What you've done is you've portrayed yourself as an assistant, but not the person who can get them all the answers. And so it's super important that right off the bat, you build rapport, you help them understand that you have a high level of influence, and that you actually are the person with all the answers that can communicate with them regularly. So that's the whole point. Right within 24 hours of when the listing's taken, they've got to make that call and have that introduction conversation. Repeat what the agents told you about their timeline to confirm you have it correct. So if the agent did not give you a timeline, no big deal. Simply say you're looking to list the property right away, or you have a few things you want to go over beforehand. The client will give you all the information that you need. If they're ready to list right away, go directly into making sure you cover all the items, stagers, photos, all this. See, we have checklists for all these items in Brivity, and yet this is just a manual to help the transaction managers understand the whole of the situation. If they're not ready to list the property yet, let them know you're just checking in, what you're waiting on from them, and that you're going to be giving them weekly updates and checking in from now until the time the property goes on the market. Once the property goes live, you've got photos back, you confirm all of that. They're now on the market, so you're going to tell them we're going to be monitoring showing feedback every single day. What happens with showing feedback, we have to train our people and help them understand our homeowner's perspective. See, what happens is when a showing happens, do any of y'all's homeowners like walk across the street and pretend like they're a neighbor and just watch the showing happen? Yeah, that's what ours do too. So we have to remind our staff that every single showing, even though to us it's just another showing, just relax is kind of what we want to tell our clients. We have to remind our staff that it's like the most important thing in the world that they get that feedback as soon as possible, because they're so engaged and they want to know what every buyer thinks of their home and so on and so forth. So when we teach them that, we explain to them how urgent, how important the showing feedback is. We use Showing Suite. It's an automatic showing feedback tool. The reality is like a third of the agents actually fill it out. And so if that's all we did, we're not really doing the best job for our clients that we can. So every single morning, our transaction managers have time blocked 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. to do all showing feedback. So we have the manual updates go out, so that takes out about a third of them. But the other 2/3, they're actually manually calling all the showings from yesterday, calling the agents and getting feedback over the phone and submitting the feedback right into Showing Time or Showing Suite, where it goes directly to the homeowner. So what we tell the homeowners is we're going to call them 3 days in a row at 8 a.m. So we're going to be sending 3 emails through Showing Suite, and we're going to be calling them 3 days in a row at 8 a.m. We're doing everything we can to get you that feedback as soon as possible, right? So let's look at number 2 and number 3. So, or number 3 really. Keep showing feedback vague. You never want to tell the client something that's not going to make a difference to them selling the property. Agents will tell you everything under the moon. So agents will make comments about the carpet, agents will make comments about the price, agents will make comments about everything. And have you guys noticed that a lot of it's not helpful? A lot of the feedback can sometimes be not helpful. So all of a sudden you have your client running around changing out every single last thing that every agent tells you. And what we've decided is, on some of these listings, depending on the client, we won't even have the feedbacks automatically go to the client. We'll have it come through us first, where we can make sure that we manually give them the feedback over the phone, so that we can leave things out that are going to cause them to either get frustrated or run around chasing squirrels, basically. When negative feedback, this is how we coach them. Hi, Mr. Seller. We had a showing on the property yesterday. The agent stated that our client thought it showed very dark. I'm thinking maybe we should open up those blinds so some more light shows through the house. Other than that, they had nothing but good things to say about the property. It just wasn't the right fit for her. I'll continue trying to keep you in the loop on showings. Have a great day. So it's a great, you gotta coach these transaction managers, especially if they're SCs, coach them on how to deliver negative feedback in a positive light that can create action and still keep everybody happy. Right? It's not the end of the world. We just need to have them make one change. When positive feedback, the buyer is interested. They said they really like the layout. They like blah 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 blah. The agent's talking it over, a few things with the buyer. I should know more from her soon. I'll certainly let you know when I hear back from them. Act excited, but never let them know an offer's coming. Right? Because how many times have you let a buyer or a seller know an offer's coming and the offer doesn't come? It's the worst, right? So never let them know an offer's coming, even if you know. And then it says refer to admin script sheet for price reduction conversation. So we've got a whole price reduction conversation as well that we got from Bold. Pending calls. Pending calls, we don't have to go through all this right now. We have out of option, all sorts of different scripts depending on where it's at. At the end of the day, guys, there's nothing crazy good about this stuff. This is just how we train our people based off of scenarios that have happened with us. What's important is that you have something to train your people with, right? Walk them through the process and give them tips and feedback about the whole thing. And what we did is, I didn't create this. Amy, our lead transaction manager, created this. So she just basically took, she kind of got thrown in there, and as she learned and as she evolved and we brought in more people, she had to train them. So she went through and typed out all of these different things that she felt like, because she originally brought somebody in, and all the things that they did wrong, she started writing up. Right? She started writing up documents to do that. So if you don't have it created, you can use this and also use your own scenarios, your own circumstances to start building that manual. So Ben talked about the promise script yesterday. Ben didn't go through the entire promise script. This is Mike Hicks' promise script. So I want to walk through it for a second because it is an absolute game changer. It sounds like it's just another script, and yet if you use it effectively, this is one of the most powerful scripts that you can possibly use. This is a script for the agents to use at the listing appointment once they've taken the listing. at the buyer agency agreement once they've taken the buyer agency agreement, right? And this is also to be used throughout the rest of the process from here on out once you've had the initial conversation. Mike claims that he gets 0.7 referrals, Ben was saying yesterday, 0.7 closed deals every client that he asked this question to. It's crazy, crazy numbers. So what we did, we immediately went back once we heard it from Mike. We went back and we had every agent in the organization memorize it. We started with our leadership, and then we went down the line. Every single producing agent in our organization has this script memorized, and now uses it. We don't really have a way to hold them accountable to using it. We just had to have them memorize it. And we hope that now that they don't memorize that they're using it. Here's the script. What I like to call Mike the silent assassin. Mike is the silent assassin because he's a high vector 3. For those of you who have been to Recruit Select and know what that means, Mike's a super patient guy. He's very calm. It's like the opposite of me. And you wouldn't see it coming, but he's a stone cold killer. He absolutely is just coming for the referral like crazy, but nobody sees it coming. And this script is the perfect example of how Mike operates. And Mike does over 100 million in sales a year in Idaho Falls, 100% referral base. It's unbelievable. So this is what he says. So this is right before he's leaving. He's getting the listing agreement signed. He says, so before you go, there's just one more thing. Do you have just a minute? Okay, well, I want to talk to you about our promise. Our group has this promise, this goal, to create this experience that you really can't imagine being better. Our systems and everything we do are designed around delivering on this promise. Everyone in our group is focused on exactly what it is that you want, what it is that you need throughout the entire process. We make every effort to be out in front of everything so we can stop surprises and keep things as good as they can possibly be. Now, we know there's going to be challenges because this is real estate and we're dealing with people here. Just know that to a person, our group is focused on creating that 10 plus experience, if you will. And that's our promise. Doesn't that sound great? So once they say yes, it says, and so there is something that I want, and he gives this little chuckle. It says, just to say it, another goal we have is that sometime from now, until the day that we close on our home, you'll feel so great about what it is that we've done for you that you're going to call me, or you're going to text me, or you're going to email me with the name of somebody that needs help in real estate. They might just have a general question. They might need to buy or sell a home. They might need to refinance. They really just might need some sort of help with real estate. Do you think that you could do that? So to be sure that you understand what I'm asking, think about this, guys. This guy's relentless, okay? So to be sure that you understand what I'm asking, while we're working together, you'll hopefully be giving my name out, which I truly appreciate you doing that, by the way. Word of mouth is our lifeblood. What I'm asking for here, though, is that you take the next step to make sure that I have a chance to help in addition to giving my name out. Please call, text, or email me their information, because then there's a 100% chance that I can get in touch with them. Can you do that for me? Okay, that'll be great. So you'll call me, right? Awesome, that would be perfect. Now, he's still not done. Now, if we get to the date of closing, and we're sitting at the closing table, and we've signed all the paperwork, and you haven't been in touch with the name of somebody that we can help, I'm going to assume that our group didn't deliver on our promise, that we could have done better. So I want to talk to you about it and find out what we could have done differently in order to have earned that referral. Will that be okay with you? Okay, great. So I'm going to count on it. I'm going to count on you to send me that referral. Thank you so much. How cool is that? It's a 4-step. He just doesn't give up. He's hammering it in, basically saying, if you don't give me a referral, I'm going to sit down and wonder what the heck I did wrong. And by doing this, he's basically saying, look, everybody knows somebody moving at all times. Everybody knows somebody moving. So the only reason you're not going to give me a referral is if there was one slight little piece of uncomfortableness that you wouldn't want to put on somebody else. And I just need to know that so I can fix it in my business. So he's going to count on it. And so we've just decided from here on out, we said enough. There's no reason why we shouldn't get a referral for every single deal that we do. There's no reason. So we basically put tracking systems in place. We created competitions around it. This is new in our business. But it's so powerful, I wanted to include it in this class. And I saw that Ben talked about it yesterday. I just felt like to do it justice, I wanted to talk about it again. Because Every single deal we do, we should be getting referrals from, as long as we're doing a good job. And anytime we don't do a good job, we should be finding out why we're not doing a good job and patching the hole in our business. So I highly recommend you guys jump into that script. It's awesome. All right. Seller and buyer systems, we talked about that already. Transactions that don't cross the finish line are a drain on your productivity. You guys know that. The way the transaction ended is what sticks in the client's mind more than anything. How many times have you at least heard, if it hadn't happened to you, where you sold the house for over asking price in 4 days and something happens at closing and they're unhappy at the end of the day, right? They remember how it ends, not everything else. They always remember how it ends, so finishing strong is important. Lost transactions impact morale, and clients who leave without a completed transaction are unlikely to refer you. So finishing strong is important. One of the things we threw in here, just to talk about it, I don't know how well everybody in this room is keeping their financials up to date. In order to stop treating real estate like a job and to start treating it like a business, I'd encourage everybody to start running a P&L. Start running a P&L. There's 3 financial instruments that you can use, or 3 tools that you can use. One of them is the balance sheet, one of them is the cash flow statement, and one of them is the P&L. The balance sheet, in our business, we don't have a ton of assets and liabilities, so the balance sheet isn't as important. Pay attention to your bank account, right? Cash flow statement will become more important as you start to grow your business, so you can pay attention to how much cash you have on hand at the beginning of every month, and how that's increasing or how that's decreasing. The one that I would highly recommend everybody to start implementing right away, if you're not already, is the P&L. And what I want to recommend, what you do with the P&L, is you actually pay yourself a salary. So figure out how much money it costs you to live, how much money you need to make personally, and pay yourself a salary. So if that's 50 grand a year or 100 grand a year, whatever it is, pay yourself that and understand that that's the cost to replace whatever it is that you do in this business, right? And allow the profit at the bottom line of the P&L to be what's left over. And now it will make it easier for you as that profitability goes up. It'll make it easier for you to start leveraging pieces out of your business, okay? And what the company that we use is called Streamline Business Solutions. They're our bookkeeper. They're based out of Phoenix. And what we love about them is that they use everything straight out of MREA. So not only are they using everything straight out of MREA, and they're owned by agents in KW, if I'm not mistaken, they actually call and talk to, do they call them? Your MCA? They work with your MCA at your market center to make sure everything matches up at the end of the month with transmittal and everything. So there's no way that money could be stolen. There's no way that anything could be missing. One time, my friend Brett, who uses Streamline Business Solutions, just to test them, he took a check that went through transmittal, but he never cashed the check. He hid it in a drawer. And sure enough, they said, we're missing $2,981 or whatever it was. And sure enough, it was the exact amount of the check. I mean, they're checking everything directly with the market center. So highly recommend, if you do hire a bookkeeper, to check out Streamline Business Solutions out of Phoenix.
Are you still on salary on your own business?
As of, I think, January, I'm still on salary, but I pulled myself off of our P&L because I'm not active in our day-to-day anymore. So what we have is basically a holdings company with the real estate team and some other stuff that I do, and I pay my salary out of that holdings company. But for 2011, I think, or late 2011, until this past year, I've always been on salary. So, also in the state of Texas, I think this is everywhere, by putting yourself on salary, you'll pay less taxes because you don't have to pay. Thank you. So Streamline gives you all kinds of cool graphs and charts. Everything's based off of MREA. All right, any questions before we keep moving? That was a pretty self-explanatory one there.
Have you guys ever thought about doing P&Ls for every listing?
P&Ls for every listing? You know, we don't do P&Ls for every listing, but we do calculate our cost per listing. Our cost per listing runs us about $350. I know Ben said $250 on his team. Ours is running us about $350. Direct hard costs, right? Not counting agents and stuff like that.
Do you have what do you use for a client survey, and when do you give it to them, and how many do you give them?
We're about to do it. We're about to go through that whole thing. Great question. What do we have over here? Anything? Yep.
So after
Yeah, that's an excellent question. In fact, we should have gone through that earlier. So the only reason that an agent steps back in is for negotiations. So that's where we draw a hard line. We've tested it all across the board where we've had our transaction managers do negotiations, where we've had agents do negotiations plus more. What we've realized is the agent's job is to not only take the listing, but also to price it right, right? And if they haven't priced it right, they have two jobs: take the listing and price it right. The transaction manager to make sure that the client is super happy, right? So negotiations is always to deal with if they didn't price it right. Same with price reductions. So the agent's job is to do price reductions. The agent's job is to do negotiations, but it's the transaction manager or the listing manager's job to set them up for success with that and to handle all the details around it. So setting them up for success, for example, would be constantly keeping the homeowner aware of what prices are going for, what homes have been selling around them, what homes just came on the market, what their competition is, and constantly feeding that seed if we know they're overpriced, so that by the time the agent does call for the price reduction, they kind of already expect it. Does that make sense? But anything that requires a high level of persuasion, that's why the agent makes the big bucks.
How many homes can your listing manager handle at one time?
For us, it's about 50 at once. Whether it's coming soon, pending, or active, they can manage about 50 at once. And that usually turns out to be like 12 or 13 closed deals and 12 or 13 new ones that come in.
Hey Tim, since your TMs are talking about like pricing in the neighborhoods and things like that, are they licensed as well?
They're supposed to be. I know that I think all but one are.
Okay.
Maybe, yeah. They're supposed to be. But, in their first 90 days, we're supposed to get them licensed. And I think I will say that that's something that I've slacked on. We don't have, that's more of a suggestion than a standard. But, yeah, they're supposed to be.